What is up, everybody? Welcome to and back to Truth and Transparency, Idaho4, all new Idaho State Police, ISP, lab docs. Finally, we can put to rest so much speculation. We can put it all to rest. Not all of it, but a lot of it. The first thing that we're going to start with, very simple. The button was not swabbed. Okay? So take out your little piece of paper, your little pencil, and just what you're going to write is you're going to write, these were the areas that were swabbed. Okay? So right here, again, we're not wasting time. We're jumping right into it. And report 1 is going to have everything to do with the sheath. And also, the reason that there's 2 case numbers is because the lab has its own case number, and we'll get to that. But here we go. Item 1 is the K-bar knife sheath. So item 1, and then it will go 1.1, which is it was swabbed in 4 spots. Swab of swab of front strap. Okay. 1.2 is the swab of edges on handle portion around it. You're going to see. 1.3 is swab of edges on blade portion. And then 1.4 is swabs of stains on back. Okay. Now, basically, the results from the presumptive chemical test performed on item 1 indicated the presence of blood. Okay. So there's your first. No more speculating. Okay. Blood is on this knife sheath, and we will be able to see it clear as day. Basically, what she is saying in this quick little synopsis is a known reference sample from any developed suspects is required for DNA comparison. Please contact the laboratory regarding the status of this known reference sample. So here we go. On 11/18, we're going to go to 1.1. On 11/17, she opens it up. She opens up the evidence tape. Now she makes a note that item opened by and examined while in the custody of forensic scientist Tina Waltall. The tan leather K-bar knife sheath, USMC with logo and snap button strap on front. And that's going to be noted as designated as side A in the photos. There's a belt loop and sleeve has rivets. Use bright light to examine. Okay. Collected, there was, tested 4 total stains on the back. Collected trace material to adhesive of sticky notes, 3 on back and 3 on front strap. And then she put it in the little evidence bag. Used 1 swab to swab from the front strap. That is item 1.1. Light gray transfer to swab, and then used 1 swab to swab the edges on the handle portion, which was the item 1.2, and then used 1 swab to swab the edges on the blade portion, which is 1.3, and then used 2 swabs to swab the staining on the back, which is 1.4. Light red-brown transfer concentrated on tips. We're going to go right to here. Look at this great big picture we get. Look at how beautiful it is. So this is side A. We're looking at side A. And then the area swabbed. Okay. So people have confused themselves. All right. With that the any button part of the button or the outie, okay? And tisk, you can clearly see, okay? She would have to explain some of this, but area swabbed, item 1.2, edges only, Again, that's up here. Edges around. Area swabbed item 1.3 is in pink. Edges only. She left the top of the button because that's what they did latent prints. Okay, now this is side B. I'm going to zoom real close up in here. You're going to see some stuff on. Now, remember how Jay Lodgson said that the sheath was found face down? So it'd be like this laying in that bed when he's talking about face down. And area swab, which is 1.4. Right there. So we're going to go to a good pick here. Oh. There we go. Right. This is one of the items that she's saying is trace material under there. It's right where the green is. And then you're going to find on the belt loop is too. Hold on. Right over here. This is a really good picture of it. That trace material right there. Here we go. This is how the sheath was face down. And then do you see all these? Okay. Now, this is really it. This is the famous sheath. Okay. None of the if you actually like zoom in, I just have so many questions for Scott Roeder, but I'm going to speak my piece on what it looks like to me. None of these gravity droplets are cast off. Nothing is smeared. There's no transfer. There's no smearing that I can see. You guys can say, yeah, I see that or whatever. But again, there's some traces of the same thing that was on the belt, the belt loop area, or the strap. She puts those in yellow. She's highlighting those. That's that trace material. I believe it's the same. It looks to be the same. There's gonna be another picture here. Right there. And then I'm going to use, oh, not that one, this one. I'm going to go back to this one. Okay. This is that back side. That's 1.4. Okay. This is that back side. And on this back side, 1.4, side B, there is Keely's DNA, Maddie's DNA, and then an unknown male, not Brian Culver's. Nobody cares. People have thought that the swab where the touch DNA was located was like in the button, whether it was the Audi or the Innie. Do you remember Ann Taylor making a big deal about asking Rylene Nolan about that? Are you talking about the Innie or the Audi part? Well, guess what? None of that. None of that based on me reading reports 1 through or pages 1 through 9 in this report, and then looking at these pictures for the diagram. And in fact, I just have another huge question, which is, okay. This wasn't looped. This doesn't fall off if it's looped. I think we can all agree, right? So this person went in there with this not looped in like pockets of sweatpants. Okay. And has gloves on. Okay. You know how difficult it is to put when you have sweatpants and you have gloves on and you're trying to like get into your pockets when you have gloves on and sweatpants? Like, that's a sloppy mess. Like, it's just so like you, what? So then the other thing is that, okay, they plotted this. They didn't say, hey, I'm going to loop my sheath to the belt, or was the sheath even planted, and it was planted by even Brian Kober because of this unknown male DNA that nobody wants to talk about, that's mixed in, that's not and was never Brian Kober's, mixed with the victims and on the side that's the 1.4. And so you're going to sit here and say he planted it, had no idea that his touch DNA was on it though. And that's where he fucked up, because he like legit planted this sheath to his own knife. But this whole time, everybody has been saying that I want to know where the touch DNA was, because it's not in the innie or the outie of the button. Again, I'm going to read how she says she swabbed this. Note, item opened by and examined while in the custody of forensic scientist Tina Walt Hall. Tan leather K-bar knife sheath, USMC with logo and snap button strap on front. Note that that's being designated as side A in the photos. Belt loop and sleeve has rivets. Use bright light to examine. Okay. And so here we go. She tested 4 total stains on back. She collected trace material, and here's how she swabbed. So she used 1 swab to swab front strap, which is item 1.1. So make this bigger. And we're going to go to item 1.1, which is going to be the first picture. Item 1.1. See how it's like where it's like the dotted lines around that? She's leaving that alone. She's not touching that part. Okay. See how it's purple? So area swabbed item 1.1. So it's the strap. It's not the button. And then the blue is the outside, which is 1.2. Edges only. The top portion. And then 1.3 is the bottom portion of the edge only. And then when she turns it over on the B side, and that's area 1, item 1.4. And that's the individual stains swab, which is when you put the white light over top of it, you can see all the cast off. Let's go back and look at this. Right there. So she used one swab to do the front strap. Then she used one swab to swab edges on handle portion. That's item 1.2. Then there was a light brown transfer to the swab when she did that. Note, there was a red-brown stains. And then she used one swab to swab the edges of the blade portion, which is the item 1.3. And then she used two swabs to swab, again, the B side when you turn it on the back. And item 1.4 was light red-brown transfer concentrated on tips. Consumptive. Note, all stains collected. Note, item left in the custody of FST, forensic scientist. That's what that means. Walt Hall pending latent print analysis. So when the test was done, actually, when she did all of this, it was 11/17. So item 1.1, swab of front strap. I'll show you guys how it's printed out. Oopsies, too far. That's where she's writing all this, what I just read. So item 1.1, whole swab cut to DNA, remaining swab stick path in main envelope. 1.2, again, date of analysis was 11/17, whole swab cut to DNA, remaining swab stick pack in main envelope. So when you guys are hearing like the Q, that's the item source Q. So Q 1.1, Q 1.2, everything to do with the sheath Q, whole swab cut to DNA remaining. So that's the 1.3, and then here's your 1.4. Stained portion of both swabs cut to DNA, note totaling one swab, no staining left on swabs, remaining swab pack in main envelope. So this 1.4 here, that's where you're getting this mix. That's where it was Maddie, Kaylee, an unknown male, whatever they listed it as. Okay. Screening analysis controls. So the date on 11/17/2022, OT 051822. So positive is blue green and negative is no reaction. And she puts these pictures to tell us, okay, see this positive, see positive, green, positive, positive, blood. See those? She's pointing to them. Blood. And how I'm, see how there's 3 points? 1, 2, 3. Is there 4? 2. I don't know if that goes with the purple part, but that's what my questioning is all about. Then she shows, let's keep on going. There you go. Positive and negative controls checked at the time of testing with expected results. Yes, so she's doing her checklist. This is a priority 1 status right there. Item 1 was processed for latent prints. Item 1, no latent prints were observed or developed. Item 1 will be returned to the submitting agency. And today we're going to have a lot more questions about how this all transpired. We don't have any pictures of that. Item 1 was processed for latent prints. Where's any pictures of that? We don't have them. Okay. Latent print processing. Item was examined by Stephanie. Presumptive blood testing positive and samples for biology were collected. Trace samples were collected on Post-it notes and placed in a manila envelope that was then repackaged with item 1. Again, she did all this on 11/17/2022. This is how it was sent over, 11/16/2022. She makes a note. There's actually also on the evidence tape. That's Brett Payne, 11/14. And then 11/16 is when it was transferred from Moscow Police Department to Idaho State Police. Don't know why they're blocking that out. And then over here off to the right in blue pen is 11/17. And that's the white label there. That's actually the lab's number that they have for their cases. So M2022, so that's 2022-4843. That's the lab's number. So Idaho State Police has a case number that's different from the lab's number. And same thing that Moscow Police Department has a case number that's different from all 2 of those. All right, so I want to point something out. Going back to, okay. So if the sheath is face down, okay, on side A, so picture this. If the sheath is face down on side A, where like the button part is, but side B, 1.4, is where the mixture of Maddie, Kaylee, and unknown male, not Brian Kober, that's on the top part, okay? So you can't say that Maddie, whoever she had in her bed, and that maybe their DNA was on those sheets. I think that'd be more of something you can argue if the sheath was the opposite way. But since where the blood in this mixture is found is on top, I think you have a strong argument to say that it's not from the sheets. Trying to explain it the best I can with. It doesn't not take away that Brian Kober's DNA is on the sheath. You know, it does not do that at all. It just simply says that how could they not be, when you would have got these results back, how are you not interested in finding out the other male? Because they knew that it was an unknown and it did not match the other male profile from the sheath. And that it's mixed in with the blood evidence. Again, at that time, you could potentially be thinking that it was multiple people that did this. So that's why I'm just like, it's not excluding Brian Kober, like, or who's ever that unknown at that time. It's just saying, hey, look at this. We have another profile, and maybe this can get us to that profile that would eventually be determined to be Brian Kober's. That's my brain. My brain is just like, this could have been done by multiple people. Why aren't we concerned about this? Especially at the time that we find this out. We don't even have the name Brian Kober. And so I would love to talk to somebody that could say, hey, this is what we were thinking. But good luck getting people to be honest about that. Now, I don't know how this sheath literally, I mean, it almost looks like it's it almost looks like where it ended up based on the timing, that it had to be towards the end, if not right at the end. Because the sheath wasn't like being moved around due to like activity. I would expect the blood to look like it would be smeared. Again, this is just my brain. It clearly was not sitting in any, pool of blood. All the blood pooling was around it. Okay. In some type of way that this did not sit in any of the pooling of blood. I also know from speaking with Scott Roeder that when stabbings occur in beds, your bed is going to absorb a lot of the blood. So it's going to sink into the mattress. It's going to, your sheets. So it will absorb it. So when they're thinking about that, you remember the train, okay, the stabbing there was nothing to absorb that blood when it's coming down and out of her neck. Okay. It's going to come out. She has her clothing. That's it. Everything else is of the texture, that it's the ground. There's nothing to absorb that. And so therefore it's flowing everywhere. Whereas a bed is going to absorb. I mean, think about when you have accidents in your bed. Like someone pissed themselves. There's not like piss then on your floor, and rolling off because your bed's absorbing. So I'm curious to see that's what kind of sucks, is that I don't want to see the victims. I want to see what the mattress looks like, the sheets, where the sheath was. I'm assuming the bodies were moved and then the sheath was taken after that. So can we see the sheath after the bodies are already gone? And no, I mean, just individually, you don't have to put that shit on the internet. It's just, so your brain, it's like to learn, to understand. Because then it would also cut down on the misinformation that goes out. She notes a couple different things. Let me go back where she has some issues with chain of custody. The chain of custody forms are really, really, really interesting. We don't fool yourselves. You're going to see a report that's pages 1 through 28 in this mix of 2,500 pages. Well, I can assure you that this report for chain of custody is well more lengthier than 128 pages because it's only putting in the items that it wants us to see. For example, it skips through items. Page 21 of that chain of custody report would never have item 114 on it. It would go in order. Okay. So, for example, when this chain of custody, Idaho State Police Forensic Services chain of custody report that was printed on 7/17/2025, this was after Brian Colbert took his plea deal. Okay. This is not the report that Ann Taylor received. This report is only the stuff that they're willing to give us, the public. So they made a new report. It's like you can filter things out. So think about if you have the capability to filter certain things out to make your report. I want to show the date, or I want to take out reports, this. So we're only going to have these ones. And then it's making a report and it's 128 pages. But in chronological order, whatever reports I was taking out, it's just going to move up those reports. So, yeah, the subject that they have, the suspect is Jack Showalter, guys. Jack Showalter and Jack D were 100% being seen as suspects and persons of interest in this case. Okay. Like, you guys, they did a stakeout of, they did a police stakeout and they were surveying John Showalter, or Jack Showalter, and he goes by Jack. So when you're seeing that say subject or suspect, the subject is whoever whoever biological material it is. If it's my DNA, I'm just the subject of that testing. That's what subject is. It's somebody that's not the victim. You're going to have your victims, then the subject is whoever that belongs to. And then there's a different line for suspect. So Mama J, they have another suspect listed above Brian in this paperwork. The name is redacted. Actually, what it is they also wrote in Brian Colbert on the one line, and then they wrote in Brian Christopher Colbert. So I'd have to know what page you're talking about out of the 2,500. Okay. I want to turn our attention to these fingernail clippings, okay? I think that there's a strong argument for something. And so I'm going to make this known, and I think people are going to be like, holy shit, I can't believe that she just said that. Well, I can say that based off of these papers until you give me something that says, no way, I can say this. Based off of these papers, okay, I can say that this is what they did. They took, they did Ethan's fingernails clippings, they did Xana's, they did Maddie's, and they did Kaylee's. And they're listed here. So anything that has to do with Ethan, the right fingernail clippings, that's item 6. Okay, then the 6-1 would be the swab of the right fingernail clippings. And then 7 is the left. So 6 and 7 belong to Ethan. 9 and 10 belong to Xana, because right and left. 12 and 13 belong to Maddie, and then 15 and 16 belong. That's just the itemized number that they're considering that. Okay. Conclusions and interpretations. So results from presumptive chemical tests performed on items 3, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 15, 16. Those are all the fingernail clippings. And the swab from item 4 indicated the presence of blood. So we can put this to rest. It's very, really important. Underneath the finger clippings of every single victim, there's blood. Okay? Okay, good. Now, whose blood it is, how many people, results from presumptive chemical tests for the presence of blood were negative on the debris from item 4. Items 6.1, 7.1, again, these are all the fingernail clippings, and the swab from item 4, and a portion of items 3, 9.1, 10.1, and 12.1 were forwarded for DNA analysis. So, well, what's item 3 and what's item 4? This is just telling you what it is. Item 10, the left fingernail clippings of Xana. 10.1, then that's the swabbing of it. Then 12, 12.1 is the swabbing of it. Then you have Maddie's, then you have Kaylee's. And so she's just writing out and typing up what she did. Used one swab to swab nail clippings. That's item 15.1. Light red, brown transfer to swab. That means light brown to red got on that tip on the swab. Note, I broke 2 nails during the swabbing and some stains remaining. Okay. So she goes and does this for all of the fingernails. I want to get to... Okay, here we go. Item 6. So see like the plus blood. So that's item 6, and that's showing you the area that she swabbed. Then blood positive, showing how she swabbed. And she has these little arrows. And I think if she has the double arrow, she like went one way and then went back. Item 9. So these are all the victim's fingernails, but everything's positive. Underneath here is for blood. Okay. So now let's go and talk about Maddie's nails. Okay. I think hers is 13. Okay. All right. So now underneath Maddie's fingernails, remember Brian's was able to be determined that it is excluded. Okay. So the reason we're focusing on Maddie's is this was the point of contention with when they swabbed underneath Maddie's fingernails. It was Kaylee, Maddie, and an unknown person. Okay. And the highest person of everybody that they tested that could have been. Now, they've eliminated Brian from it. Okay. So how important would it be if your client would be eliminated from that, right? And here, one of the people that they are unable to eliminate is Ethan. Now think about this though. If the killer had Ethan's blood already on his clothing, because Ethan was killed first, okay, then if Maddie was to grab at some clothing items of the killer and is grabbing in an area, okay, that has blood on it, and it's Ethan's, and then her fingernails are also there and mixed, like lying however it is on the bed, and that she's getting also then Keely's, they were unable to exclude Ethan. And I said, something that's just interesting is not that Ethan would be the killer, obviously, but can you say, wow, would this be enough to ask a expert to opine on, is it possible that Ethan was killed before Maddie? And then they would need other evidence. Like, I'm just saying I could say this without having other stuff. We may already be able to say no to this because they have other material. But I'm saying at the time when they were going in chronological order of doing everything with their investigation, at the beginning, they wouldn't have been able to rule that out yet. At that point, that could be that's a plausible thing to say. And it's like, okay, now how can we say that that's not? And you would say that it's not is if you can show that the order is different. Does that make sense? Again, I'm trying to explain it as not gory as possible, but also make it. The bottom line is that, again, we're talking about blood. We're talking about the sheath. There's a mix of the blood on the back of that sheath and the part that's swabbed. Okay, it's Kaylee, Maddie, and an unknown male. Okay, and then now here we have the fingernails of Maddie, and this too is Kaylee, Maddie, and we're able to exclude Brian Culver, just like you're able to exclude Brian Culver from that mixture. And when you start saying to yourself, "Oh, just nothing to see here," you just can keep saying that, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I think there's everything to see here. I think there's just everything to see here. Also, there was no fibers underneath the fingernails. Like, when if you scratch at someone's material, you could potentially get like a snag from their clothing and your nail. You can do it on your own clothing. I know when I go shopping, I make sure if I'm going to get a hat or something like that, I don't want my knitted hats to have like it was already snagged or something. I'm curious about that fiber on the because they never tested it. They don't know where it comes from. It's on the sheath. It's the same gray little fiber. It's like a string. Like, where'd that come from? Looks like it came from clothing. So I just think it was interesting that also she more or less lives with Ethan, and I think it'd be normal if his DNA was underneath her fingernails, just because like when you're in contact with somebody like constantly, you're hanging out, I don't know. It wouldn't be unheard of. It would actually be, yeah, okay. So, but I think it could be actually, hey, could this be a different order? Nobody talks about Ethan and Xana at all that night. It's wild. So you have a single source profile that you got from the strap area. And then you have another male profile that you extracted because it was a mixed sample between Maddie, Kaylee, and then you're able to separate it. And here's another unknown male sample. 2 males on that sheath. Well, Brian doesn't have any friends. Brian has 18 people in his contacts, right? I just can't believe that nobody cares about that. In fact, people don't even know that it exists. I asked people if they knew. Did you know that there was an unknown male's DNA, and it's in the area of where they swab in the area of blood? It's a male. It's a male contributor. So not a female. It's a male. Unknown male blood in that area that I just showed you guys where the blood was. Then all the gravity droplets are seriously so, like Scott Roeder said, this is somebody moving slow, methodically. This is not rushed, and your gravity droplets are really. This is somebody that's cool, calm, and collected. That left a very strong impression for me. See, suspect, subject, subject. Again, swab of front strap of knife sheath, swab of edges on handle portion of knife sheath, swab of edges on blade portion of knife sheath, and swabs of stains on back of knife sheath. See, swab of front strap of knife sheath. Swab of edges, the edges on handle portion. And then where you're going to get this is the swabs of stains on the back. This is B. That's where the unknown male is. And that's where the blood is. And I'm just like, what? And over here, Hippler's like, all of these people gave their DNA and it doesn't match them. Okay. The people that Anne was like third party culprit. Okay. Hippler's over here like, dude, Anne, these people that you're saying are third parties, right? Their DNA is not in there. And now Anne has way more material. Maybe Anne's like, no, they just took the people's DNA, but they never tested it. I don't know. I have no idea what these people did. But 1.4. So let's go back to, if you pull out when Ann Taylor asked, let's pull out this Nollins these questions on the stand during a suppression hearing, January 23rd, 2025. And we go to, okay. They didn't put it in CODIS. They I don't know if they've done it at the point of January 23rd, 2025. This was not put in CODIS. I don't know if it makes it. It may not even make the standards to put it in though. Okay, so Riley Nolan takes a stand, and Ann Taylor says, question from CODIS DNA that goes into CODIS, what kind of profile is used? Answer. If I'm understanding the question correctly, there's different types of DNA profiles, and what goes into CODIS is known as an STR profile or short tandem repeat. She's saying, what kind of information is in a short tandem repeat? And she says, okay. I have one more question about CODIS, Ann Taylor says, and then I want to move in a different area. You mentioned that there's 4 indexes and you talked about a forensic index. Answer, correct. What is that one used for? Answer, the forensic index is where profiles generated from items of evidence can be uploaded. There are rules about what can be uploaded, though. It cannot match someone known to be the victim of a crime. It cannot match someone whose DNA should be in a place outside of a crime being committed. It cannot be anything taken directly from a suspect of a crime where you would reasonably assume their DNA would be present. It must be related to a crime, and it must be believed to be from the punitive perpetrator of that crime. So Ann Taylor says, so if I understand it, you use DNA, get an STR, and only under certain circumstances can you use CODIS. Do we understand that correct? Yes. Okay, outside of CODIS, she says, and I understand what that does. If you create a profile, DNA profile of somebody, is that a separate thing you do in your lab, even if you're not going to run them through CODIS? Yes, she says. When we receive items of evidence or samples from known individuals, we generate a DNA profile from those. Anne says, did you become involved in the homicide in Moscow from 2022? Involved? As the manager of the laboratory? Sure. I haven't actually done any work, though. She says, okay, all right, fair. Is it fair to say that you did not go to that residence then? She says, correct. As a lab manager, do you understand about what evidence has come into the lab from that case? There was a lot of evidence submitted. I have a general knowledge of items that have come in, but I could not provide you a detailed list off the top of my head. She's like, that's okay. I won't ask you to. Then Ann Taylor says, are you aware of a profile called Unknown Male A? Yes, she says. She says, Ann Taylor says, where did that come from? Answer, to my recollection, Unknown Male A came from a swab taken from a knife sheath that was submitted by Moscow Police Department. Are you aware of Unknown Male B, she says. She says, I believe that was another sample from hearing the previous testimony that was from in the house. Ann Taylor says, I would only want you to testify from your own base of knowledge. Then she says, from my own memory, I don't recall exactly where B was from. Fair enough, she says. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Are you aware, Ann Taylor says, that investigative genetic genealogy or forensic IgG was used in this case? Now, I have a question. How does the manager of the lab not know that 2 unknown male DNAs were extracted from that knife sheath? That would be kind of like a big deal, don't you think? She knows that male A came from the sheath. Where's unknown male B? What's unknown male C? And then, so, okay. Next, she says, another area. She says, okay. Miss Taylor says, Miss Taylor says, Your Honor, I'm going to be referring to Defense Exhibit D19 here and ask the witness be shown that. And then I'll provide the court my copy. When was this filed, says Hippler? She's like, that would have been filed with the amended Frank's memorandum on the bottom of that page. Court says, I've got thousands of filings. I have to go by date to find things. Oh, I think it was November 18th or 20th at the bottom of the page. However, you can see some numbers in red, and those were numbered to make it easier to find. You know, this is when they're going back and forth. Okay, so here we go. Question. Okay. What I want to know is, what did Othram preserve? Answer, I don't know. Question by Ann Taylor, what did you get back? We received a preliminary report. In other cases, we will sometimes get back the DNA extract that was sent to them. I don't recall if we got that back in this case. Anything our laboratory receives, we return to the submitting agency. Would validation be part of that? Okay, so we're going to go to chain of custody here. Chain of custody for the sheath. And this is page 1. I read that just to familiarize your guys' self with just a reminder, okay? So the DNA profile obtained from item 1.1 was determined to be from an unknown male, okay? That's item 1.1. That's Brian Kohlberger's. See item 2, report number 1 issued on this day. They are not the source of DNA on this item. So Ethan Chapin, blank, 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 and blank, they're not the source of DNA on this item. This DNA profile was entered in the combined DNA index to be routinely checked against the database. The case agency will be notified if the event of a profile matches. So it didn't match. The DNA profile obtained from, here we go, right here, 1.4 indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which matches that obtained from the known forensic samples of Kaylee. Okay. This is underneath Maddie's fingernails. Or on the, not underneath Maddie's fingernails, this is on the back side of the sheath, side B, 1.4. Assuming a 2-person mixture, this DNA profile is at least 757 septillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Kaylee and an unrelated, randomly selected individual than if it resulted from 2 unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general population. So item 1.4, okay, 1.4, Kaylee and a random. Madison is a potential contributor to the minor component of this mixture. So Kaylee's the major. Maddie is a potential contributor to the minor component of this mixture. Assuming a 2-person mixture, this DNA profile is at least times more likely seen. Okay. Ethan, Xana, whatever's there, are excluded as contributors to this DNA mixture. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.2 indicates a mixture of DNA from 3 individuals. Do I have my 1.3 and 4 mixed up? Yeah, I do. Okay. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.2 indicates a mixture of DNA from 3 individuals, at least one of which is male. There it is. I think I've been telling you guys for this whole time. Due to the low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. What? The partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.3 indicates a mixture of DNA from at least 2 individuals, at least one of which is male. Oh, no, I think I was right. I think I'm just talking about these other ones because the other one's more prominent. Okay. Due to the low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. This is the sheath. Items 1.1 and 1.4 were consumed during testing. However, DNA extract remains for these items. Items 1.2 and 1.3 and their DNA extracts were consumed during testing. Item 20 has been returned to the main laboratory evidence vault pending additional DNA analysis. All other items and the empty packaging for items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4 have been returned to the main laboratory evidence vault for return to the submitting agency. This is when they find out that they have, hey, we put in the CODIS, the single male source profile, but we have here male mixtures that clearly aren't, or they're trying to say that it's not. Yeah. They're saying that due to the low level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. And I think this is where Ann Taylor is saying, did they even try? I want to know, did you even try? Because this is where I want to compare. I just wanted to hear the testimony. I want to compare it to the testimony that was given at Delphi. Okay. Because for the record, what they did in Idaho, Indiana would have never done, and because they don't mess with IgG and they don't mess with touch DNA, based off of the testimony that was given in Delphi. And only one person worked on that case to not like cross contaminate and, hey, this is your case, this is what you do. So I was really looking forward to the testimony, to hearing it. All right. So item number 1. Okay. I'm not sure when Ann Taylor was given the chain of custody reports. I believe that they were way down the road, as in like at least a year later. But one, if she would have had this like right off the rip, okay, or very close to like she was asking for, she would have been able to see these dates. And so that's where I'm going to show you these dates. Oh, wait, there we go. Okay. Item number 1, the K-bar sheath. I'm going to make this bigger for you guys. Okay. So they receive it on 11/16. So see right there, 11/16 at 3:44. Then on 11/17, the lab staff is when they're going to start handling it. So Mickey Hall, 11/17, evidence storage, Meridian evidence locker. So they're getting it out of the evidence locker is my guess, because it went into the evidence storage right there. Then Tina has it at 7:55 in 3 seconds. Okay, so she starts working on this. Now pay attention. She keeps it, she says, in her custody and control because of the latent prints. And then, so from here to here, the question would be is, like, what was it doing on 11/18 and up until 11/19 and 20, or in, like at 12:58? You guys see that? See how that's all on the same day, 11/17, 11/17, 11/17. And she makes a little note that how she kept the item 1 because she was going to be doing latent prints. Now, and here comes Blaker. Okay. We know that Blaker goes and travels and gets. Now, again, I have no idea. On 11/21/2022, lab staff, Mickey. 11/21/2022. So the thing though is that what's going on with the sheath on 11/21? What's going on 12/5? 12/6, 12/7, 12/14, 12/16. And now the reason I ask this is because once you've already extracted the stuff from and you've taken the swabs from the sheath, okay, and you get your male single profile on 11/18 is when it was developed. It's that extract that then was put into CODIS on 11/20, okay? And then Blaker is coming and getting that a vial to take to Othram. So I would want someone to explain some of that. But this is the only piece because they go from item 1. And so let me show you. If we continue to go down. So item 1.1 is the swab of the front strap. See, 11:59. Stephanie at 2:49. Evidence storage meridian CW2 out. Then on 11/18, lab staff Shannon. 11/18, 4 minutes later, analyzed freezer section 5. 11/18, again, this is just this 1.1. Lab staff, 11/18, 15 minutes later, evidence storage, analyzed freezer section. Now, 12/14. These dates just stick out to me because this is about when did the FBI take over? Remember that big meeting that took place on supposedly December 10th? Okay. I don't know. I just look at all this stuff and I'm like, would just love somebody to, explain what's going on. 12/16 is the release of submitting agency. Again, it's all the same shit for 1.1, 1.3, 2, 3, 4. It's all the same. 11/17, 11/18, 12/14, 12/16. Swabs of inside surface of blade portion, 1.5. Then this is where it's different. This 1.5. 12/5, 12/6. So did Stephanie go to town again? Swab of inside surface of blade portion. And then item number 10 is left hand nail clippings from autopsy. See these dates? Everything's all happening pretty much on the same days. Again, 10.1 is the swab of the left finger nail clippings from Xana. Again, so hers was 11/19, 11/22, 12/14, 12/16. And then look at this jump. So this is what we don't get. Remember I told you the 128 pages? It goes from item 10.1. This should just be in order. then it jumps to item 100. Where is item 11 through 100? We don't have those. And so item 100 is Brian Kober's, the biosuspected biostain. It's the dark red counter swab tested positive for something for blood. And that was on 1/6/2023. Again, 101 is cutting of reddish brown stain on uncased pillow. So this is like his, what do you call it? His office, or not his office, but his apartment. 101.1. So everything from 10, if you think about it, all the items 10 through 100, which would be what was tested in this case. What we're able to see is fingernail clippings and the sheath. I think they get into a little bit about down the road here, because then it goes back and it mentions item 11, which was a DNA blood card. Let's see something else. Item 130 is the turn signal assembly removed from suspect vehicle by ISP Detective Talbot. How about this? Remember when we were waiting to find a suspect and they kept saying things like, we've submitted, 36 items to be tested to the Idaho State Police. And then it went from 36 items, then all of a sudden it was like 103, and then it was 113. Okay. You guys remember that? And is it that you submitted them to be tested, or did you just submit them and put them into like the evidence locker? Item 20 is a DNA extract. DNA extracts from items 3, 4, 5, and then 6.1, 7.1, 8, 9. Those are all the ones I'm talking about. That's what I want to see. And because it says pending analysis. When we getting a cell data? That's what I want, says New Orleans lady. I just want to know how they investigated this case. Like, what was so when you're going in order like this, what I thought would be an order, you're jumping to 1/6. Like, we're talking about 11, 18 and 19. Okay. You're jumping to basically, here's the arrest of Brian Kober. Okay. And so is this how this was truly ever handed to Ann Taylor? Because she's like, I'd have to ask for, what are the items that you tested that were from, I don't know, 12 to 100, and then there's stuff that's written in here. Let's say, for example, let's go with, okay, bottom of mattress pad, ISP marker, C on 1/6. I'm guessing that's from his apartment. Stain A on bottom portion of mattress protector. Again, just because of the date, 1/19. And then some of the stuff tells us how many days each piece from the time that it was submitted and tested or handled or received to then when there was a resolution. Some items were like 600 days. What's this? Yeah, it's the same shit. Cutting from bottom of seat cushion, like in his car, 1/12/2023. I mean, they tore apart this whole entire vehicle, right? Nothing. Remember I was saying like blood would be like, it absorbs in. They tested that whole, you may be able to, from the exterior looking out, but like if you take that car apart and get all up in there, they found nothing. Nothing. Hair trace material from back seat cushion. Section of headliner near visor collected from suspect vehicle. Seatbelt boot collected from suspect vehicle. Buckle swab collected from suspect in Latell County Jail on 1/6. DNA extract. So DNA extracted from items. So items 72, 78, 101, 103, 103, 103, 108. My only guess is that you're trying to compare those. You're trying to see if any of these would link back to Brian. Look at the dates that this was done. 1/19, 2023. So basically, my questions still remain like, hey, what were y'all doing from November 13th until December 30th? Trace material on floor mat from Brian Culber's vehicle. Seatbelt from suspect vehicle. I mean, they tore apart this car. Brake pedal. Gas pedal cover from suspect. Look, they kept on going because they're like, we need to find something. We need to find something. Look at the dates when they're, hey, now let's go on this date. Black gloves from desk chair. Room case, suspect's parents' home. FBI number 18 swab of gas and brake pedal removed from 23M. What case is this? See this? 23 before the M is 2023. So 23M00369. 70 swabs for lab submission. FBI number 18. Swabs of gas and brake pedal. So the FBI is like, here, we're going to have our people do stuff. March 3rd. And that case number is interesting. I'll look into that. What else we got? Okay, FBI number 21, swab of gear shift. What do we got? FBI 36, swab of seat belt buckle. FBI 28, swabs of gas and trunk release. That's good to swab. Smart. When did they decide to do that? March 3rd. Put some thinkers involved here. FBI 23, swab of radio controls. Submitted swab of stain on trash can in west bedroom. So they went, that's item 125. Swab of stain on inner edge of east bedroom door on floor 3, marker X. DNA extracts from items 125.1. So this is pending analysis here in March. Manual intake was required due to sequence issue with 100 plus items. I would love to know what the heck this means. I know they had an issue, and this is at Idaho State Police. Oh my gosh, manual intakes. This is all in April. These were elimination prints to be able to eliminate. Turn signal. Gear shift knob and boot removed. By Talbot. Look at this. June 23rd. Staying near top left corner. This is what I think this is when Ann Taylor's like, we want stuff tested. Let me see if I think it's right. Which one's this one? Here we go. Ann Taylor's like, okay, item 132, pink blanket with red hearts, which tested presumptively positive for proteins using Blue Star. Area that illuminated is indicated with a Sharpie. Please test for blood. So on June 14th, 2023, then here's your evidence storage meridian, then your lab staff on the 15th, evidence locker, then you have Stephanie, then 623, evidence storage, biology, large item out, large item Aya, Mickey Hall, MH. Items to ship. So look at this. 10/24/2023. What type of a priority do you think this was? Okay. Look at that. That's some priority right there. Green and pink jacket, which tested positive for proteins, which using Blue Star area was the front zipper. There was blood on the front zipper of this green and pink jacket. So we finally find out where this blood was, and it was on the front zipper. $614 and return to submitting agency on 7/17. That blanket was a lot longer. What item was that blanket? 133 was the zipper. Okay. So the DNA extract from item 132.1 is going to be from the blanket, is my understanding, because the blanket was 132. The jacket was 1. And so it was, they wanted to extract this. And I'm trying to see. Okay, 10/16. I don't know. That's just. Remember, I think they had to get that blanket. They had to get some items back from Dylan because they were just passing out the items to people. Now look at this. September 24th, or I'm sorry, 9/11 on 2024. Item 137. These were IN exemplars from item 913, which you would go and look at MPD's item 913, and it was somebody's fingerprints that they were. So 9/11, 930. See fingerprints, latent prints, 918 here. So I'd have to go and look to see, and I'll size all of this up to see what this is even about. Off of Ann Taylor's filings, I mean, what are they doing? Look at this. This is in June of 2025. They had Kaylee's fingernails way longer. Mm. They're not going to give us. So item number 17, somebody's DNA. They're not going to give us whose it was, but they took somebody's DNA that was offering it. Can we? And that went and was delivered on 11/18 from Moscow Police Department. That's when so think of who they only would have talked to up to that point. Same thing here. 18, 19 DNA swabs. So this is all from, my guess is, Dylan, Bethany, Hunter. Oh, here we go. DNA extracts. This is what we're looking for. Oh, that's item 2. No, I need item 1. Damn. I don't know what item 2 is. Wait a second. Okay, look at this. DNA extracts from item. Oh, okay. Yeah. Item 2 is the extracts. Okay, yeah. Then this is what I needed. Boom. Okay, yes, this is what we needed. Okay. So item 1 is your sheath. Item 2 is the DNA, the extract. So item 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. So 11/17 at this time. 11/20. This is putting in a CODIS and shit. CODIS. And then here's your 11/21, 11/22. That area is Blaker. See how it says? I would want to know what this means. CW2 out. And then pending DNA analysis. Okay, which they were able to make profiles. So then let's see what happens here. Remember that big old meeting that they had on December 10th that they say? We'll look at December 9th. What the fuck's going on? And then nothing until, look at, right before they're getting the grand jury. 4/6/2023. They're impaneling a grand jury in May. Out. Would love to know what that's about. All right, what do you guys think? I'm turning it on over to you guys. What do you think? Now I look at chat. What do we got? It wasn't Dylan's jacket. It was the pink and green jacket, which I believe was found in the spare bedroom. My notes say spare bedroom is where that was found. The pink and green jacket. Getting closer. Yes, we are. What's up, Anna? How you doing, girl? IHDNA is not in the reports. Did he submit DNA? No, he did not. Does new evidence mean something Anne asked for but didn't receive before the plea? What qualifies as new evidence? What do you mean by that? And wasn't there a vacant house near crime on 1113? I don't know. I don't know. Not that I recall. Um, Lots of work, but plenty of holidays for sure. Do you have his Marshall's receipt? Um, Marshall's receipt? I don't even know if we're going to be using that. uh, I'll tell you what, after listening to, and I'll be putting it out there today at some point, after listening to PC's interview, she's in the same sorority as Kaylee. After she did her interview, based on the line of questioning that she was asked, it's 150% they believe, the cops in Moscow believed that Kaylee was the target based on it, like on 11:15. Lana, you ruled. Don't be sad. Who's sad? Who's sad? I'm not sad at all. Why would I be sad? Sorry if you think I'm sad. Hold the sheath in one hand, knife in the other. Why? Like, why would anybody do that? Very, very bizarre, I think. But I think Peyton Campbell. Again, just my guess. Anyways, 100%. I'm all. You'll hear the line of questioning. Now, Jenna McClure was supposed to be moving in. She said some really interesting things on her interview. I'll go over that. Gosh, I just. Mm-mm-mm. They needed Dylan's testimony. Without Dylan's testimony and without those text messages back and forth, that's, I mean, she's vital for the timeline. I mean, when I say vital, I'm talking vital. Vital. Wait, what's this? Portion of DNA extract from item 1.1. Ooh, what's this? Item 22. Yeah, look at that. This is important. Okay, here it is. Released to submitting agency. This is it right here. Got it. Here is your going off to your courier. Got it. This is the vial. This is the vial that went to Othram. Here it is. Page 151 out of the, just print page 151. What page is it of the report, though? There it is. Found it. Boom. There it is. Lana, do you believe Ethan was first? I believe that if Xana's up and in the room, the kitchen, eating, or living room eating, do you guys know? I'm trying to figure it out. The living room, not just the beer pong table, but there's another table that was right next to the couch. I believe that there was a blood smear on that. Like they needed, I'm just getting clarification if the table in the living room is considered the table in the living room and if they were then saying beer pong table. I want to know, or are they using end table? I'm trying to get clarification on that with how they were labeling the tables in the living room. But I'll tell you that, okay, think about this. You're waiting to get your food. You're waiting to get your food. You are hungry. Now, if you're awake and you're hungry, okay, you have an app. This is why I think she had Ethan's phone, because I think that just because I use somebody, you can use my account from some, like, on your phone for DoorDash if you sign in under me, you know? So anyways, what time do you think Xana at 4:00, once it was supposedly put there, versus why couldn't it have been put there at 3:51 and she just hits the button at 4:01 to say that that's when it was delivered? Okay. Like, we're dealing with Molly here. Okay. So 4:01 is when you would just hit the button to show that you, I believe that's submitting the picture, is hitting 4:01. But go ahead. Let's say that she does it right after she runs up, does it, boom. How long do you think she, meaning Xana, like, she gets the notification that the DoorDash is there? They would have on the phone you viewing it. If anybody went through her Cellbrite, you're going to see that she gets on the app, like, opens up the app, looks, sees, then closes out of the app. Like, what time does that happen? Does that happen? So when she goes downstairs to get the food and come back up, or was it somebody else that got it for her and then says, here you go? Nobody wants to talk about the fact that they ever saw Ethan or Xana. But if she's eating, and because we see the bag in the kitchen, if she's eating in the kitchen, right, and having her food there, did and remember, Murphy's missing. Is it in fact Xana possibly bringing Murphy back upstairs to Kaylee? Or are we going to completely throw out what Dylan says? Because immediately after Kaylee would be saying that there's somebody here, you're not just going to hear the running down the stairs. You're going to hear the running down the stairs to go all the way down to get the food that's at the front door, and then somebody would be coming up. Why isn't she talking about that? Why is there no reference to the fact that Dylan, who's awake, never mentions the fact that, hey, you know what's really weird is I heard it's right next to my door, so somebody obviously was going up the stairs. Then they came back downstairs, and then I heard somebody go down the other stairs and come back up. Like, that's how you would be thinking about that. But there was no mention about, like, those other stairs. So wouldn't she have heard? Because she's saying at 4:00, basically, let me tell you what happened at 4:00. Well, I'll tell you what happened at 4:00. Somebody had to go downstairs and get the DoorDash food. Or somebody just walked it in, you know? But wouldn't there be any mention of that? No mention about that you heard those stairs being occupied. Because you'd have to go, like, you'd go running down and then running up to go get it. And then if Xana goes back into the kitchen to eat her food, wouldn't Xana come across the killer first, right there? And the question would be is, well, not if Xana ate her food, right, in her bedroom. That's why I said, well, I'd want to see if there's any crumbs in the bed. Dude, there's no way that you're eating and drunk and not having some crumbs in your bedroom somewhere to show that you were in there eating that. I want to know where Xana was eating, because she has from 4:01, okay, till basically like what, 4:08. What time do you think? 4:10. Or did Xana finish all of her food? She's going to bed, but Dylan doesn't mention a word about Xana. Nothing about anybody being in the kitchen and hearing. Um, I mean, so Brian's able to, again, this would take some intel. So think about the intel. Brian's not traveling around the house at any point in time when basically Molly's lost and walking. Then they cross paths back there, literally at the same time they're crossing each other in the back. At the 3, like when Molly's going to enter there to drop off the food at 3:46, 3:45, whatever. That's like when Brian would be leaving that one loop and he's back behind on Walenta and she's back there. Then she comes on through and she's literally there from 3:46 until 4:01. Brian, who had just literally made back-to-back loops almost, he decides that he's going to wait. And his next loop is not like the other ones. He's waiting and he goes and he supposedly makes this loop from 3:56 to 3:58. And au contraire, ready? When that's happening, Molly says that she sees this person, but it looks nothing like him. But Payne says it couldn't have been that car that she saw, even though he says that car then pulled them behind Molly when Molly was in the driveway, caddy corner at the end there to drop off the bag. Absolutely absurd. But more importantly, he says that Molly had to have seen the person that had the SUV that was the light colored SUV, which would have been at 3:53. They are just changing what everybody is telling them. When I say they, the police. Dylan says that she heard Kaylee. Molly says that she saw a blonde, redhead, spiky hair dude in a tan sedan. Nope, she has to be wrong. Then Molly's over here talking about how she's seeing somebody up in a window, but she isn't explaining that she's even looking at that window. In fact, when she closes her eyes to give her little, oh, tell it on the mount, like her little, it's completely wrong. Like you have a video and it does not match the video. She's saying that she's closing her eyes and talking about how she's driving back in there, and she goes right instead of left to go to the house when she's closing her eyes to envision her drive there. It's absolutely absurd. And see, but I think Alex Skelton is, I'm actually so thankful that she did that, because just to show that Molly is just an absolute liar. But it also shows that Alex isn't, you would never ask her to do something like that if you thought that she couldn't and she'd get it wrong and it would just be ridiculous. If you're in on some like big conspiracy, Alex Shelton would have never asked Molly to do that. So I was trying to look for, I'll look one more time. What about everything that happened on the kitchen sink in the living room? I mean, in the kitchen. What about the knife that was sitting out first on the ground, then on the beer pong table? What about this glove that was outside? Here we go. Item 68. Empty beer can found on vanity. They tested that on 12/13/2022. Why on 12/13? Swab of lid areas on the beer can, number 1 from vanity. 12/19. But did they know Brian Culver's name? Swabs of right shoulder strap. 12/20. Swabs of fabric zipper pulls. I think this is off of the bag that's in the living room. After I read that Xana package, oh yeah, guess what was in that bag, by the way? The bag that's in the living room, because of these documents, there was beer cans in there. Full beer cans. And based off of what people saw Xana doing, people saw Xana stuffing a jacket in with like beer into a book bag. And then I think so did Bethany. Bethany said that she did the same thing. So I believe that that bag was brought over by Xana, leaving Sigma Chi. Backpack found, here it is, item 67. Backpack found in living room held full beer cans. Please also test for DNA. And this was on 12/13. 12/13 that they were interested in finding out. So think about this. If you're talking to these surviving roommates, okay, you'd want to ask them, hey, when you guys went to bed or when you were in the living room, was this backpack there? Where's any of those type of questions? Like, what the fuck? Like, there's a shoe and a sock in the middle of the floor, then the other shoe somewhere else. They're of these Doc Martens. Hey, when you came home, like, was this here? Whose is this? Like, where's just the simple to sort out the crime scene? That's why we need Blaker's interview with Dylan, the second long one with Gooch, and we need it with Bethany. And we cannot go off of anything that was typed up and written because we see what their reports look like. They're absolute messes. But here, right here, is backpack found in living room held full beer cans. Please also test for DNA. And that was item number 67. What do you mean, please also? What do you want me to test? Like, were the beer cans in? Did they keep the beer cans in the book bag? Did that make it? Did that not make it? Like, because the next item says 67.1 is gum with wrappers was located in that backpack. Gum with wrappers. Then swab of handle loop. Then swabs of left shoulder strap. And all of this begins literally the backpack, item 67. Idaho State Police takes custody and control of that on 12/13. You're not doing anything with that backpack there until 12/13. I was thinking that would be the backpack outside or whatever that cooler was, and this backpack to me would be so important. I cannot believe that they have no interest in that until based off of not having a suspect. Because what I would be thinking in my head is that if we can get DNA off of that somebody else's that's actually like related or would know who the unknown is on the sheath, get other people to start talking about who that unknown is. And you have to think about it. If you think that this person is a young college student or, young late 20s, early 30s, and they don't have a criminal background, you weren't going to get a hit in CODIS, right? Because they don't have a criminal background. So after the swabs of the left shoulder strap, then swabs of right shoulder strap, swabs of fabric zipper pulls. None of this. Empty beer can found on, and then it goes to empty beer can found on vanity. Okay, here we go. DNA cuttings, items 57 through 65. 66.1, 67.1 through 67.5 through 68.1, 69. Okay. On 12/21, so they are pending analysis. They sent those off on 12/21. After knowing Brian Cover's name, blue powder found on desk in bedroom, unmeasured. Idaho State Police got it in their hands on 12/23. Like, okay. Then blood swab from N wall stairwell already tested positive for blood on 12/27. So that's got to be the house. They're not in anything of Brian's yet on blood swab from half wall. Yep. 12/27. Hey, let's test this blood that's on the half wall. You don't, wow, 12/27. Why? Why? Think about it. The same day, 12/27, they turn in blood swabs from the half wall to the Idaho State Police, already tested positive for blood on the same day that they're pulling the trash of Brian Cover's parents on 12/27. Why wouldn't that have been, I don't know, submitted, I don't know, on 11, especially like where it's located. The blood swabs from half wall already tested positive for, we don't care about that until 12/27 to give it to the Idaho State Police. To the lab. Same thing with the stairwell. The stairwell 12/27. Then the blood swab from the second floor study table already tested positive for blood. And I'm like, the study table? What study table? Is that a desk? Blood swab from second floor study table. What the fuck is that? Study table. Anyways, 12/27. Then blood swab from second floor outside of bedroom door already tested positive for blood. 12/27. Blood swab from smear on living room table. Now, this is where I was like, what living room table are we talking about here? Again, 12/27. Blood swab from edge of third floor door. 12/27. Blood swab from floor stain inside doorway. W bedroom marker R. Already tested positive for blood. 12/27. And then 12/28, they received this at 3:30 and 52 seconds. Rylene Nolan was the person that received this, this is the FBI number 4, 2 Band-Aids from Blakesley, Pennsylvania. So this is the FBI that collected and gave to the Idaho State Police on 12/28 at 3:30 and 52 seconds, which is, I believe, in the morning. Yeah, 3:30 in the morning. Because, yeah. So Riley Nolan was there at 3:30 in the morning to collect FBI's number 4, which is the 2 Band-Aids from the trash pull. And then Catherine Dace was there at 3:36 and 8 seconds to get it from her, 3:36 in the morning. And then it was in evidence storage, 12:20. Then Shannon had it, the lab staff, on 12:30 at 11:25. Then on 12:30, analyzed freezer section 5. And then on January 6th, lab staff don't know what they're doing. Then they returned it to be returned, freezer section 8. Any questions? Riley getting up at 3:30 in the morning. You didn't tell us about that, your experience. Why didn't you ask any questions about that, Ann Taylor? Why she got up at 3:30 and met at the lab? Does she normally do that? What was she thinking that she was meeting at the lab at 3:30 in the morning for? Like, dude, Anne, were you in over your head, girl? I think you may have been. Rylene's just there at 3:30 in the morning. Lab manager. I'm just there at 3:30 in the morning. Is that normal? Meanwhile, there's blood in the house that and they swabbed all this stuff. And here, let's start, like, all right, here, go ahead, submit this to the lab for testing. They didn't submit stuff until 12:27. That you would think you might be, should we test this? I mean, I think anybody would be in and over their head if they believed that if this was a, what's the word? If you're being railroaded, you're going to be in over your head. Because remember, they knew they were going to keep using IgG a secret. So all of this stuff, you would be looking at this like it's bizarre. Like you're not doing anything. It's like you're waiting to get back this IgG stuff, but we don't know that that's what you're doing because we have no idea that you employed IgG, right? And nowhere does it say, except if you were to look through these and Anne didn't get these. I would love to know when these were turned over to Anne. I'm going to bet, and I'm going to put a lot of money on that bet. I would bet you that there's no way in hell that Anne got any of this stuff prior to January of 2024. When was that motion to compel number 3? Whatever the date was on that. I think that was heard. It was heard by Judge. Then they had some in-camera review. She was trying to get everything, all the testing, this shit, the DNA. The FBI submitted at least 61 samples from the trash. 61 samples. How did Idaho State Police, out of those 61 samples, how were they able to turn this around and boop, here we go. But if you look at all this other shit that they do, they arrested him on what day again? The 29th? How? Well, they knew it was going to match. That's how. They knew that, but none of the pieces in here. I think that's why Anne was trying to get to, is that um, one of the pieces or some of these pieces in the trash had to belong to Brian Kober. So why didn't you just match? Why would you need to be doing anything paternity? You know what I mean? Like, why are you just, hey, you'll get there when you get there to see. I think that was where her line of questioning was going that one day. That's one thing that makes sense to me. Because she was asking about unknown male E, and all I know is I talked to one of the best in the country, probably the world, and she said this is not how you would do any of this shit. She's never done a case where you don't go in paternity. No, you have to see the person discarded. If I'm going to give an agency that I work for, I'm working with in my lead in here, I'm going to go get their DNA, like get that person's DNA. And you don't do it by, you have to know specifically what they discard. You're supposed to see them discard the item. You're supposed to pick it up, document all of that, and then turn it over, and then they test it. But never would you go and do a trash pull and just take 2 fucking full trash cans and say, here you go. Let's run some paternity tests. What? That's what I was told. That's just absolutely absurd. That's not how you're supposed to do it. That's not how anybody does it. But they knew. It's like they knew that this couldn't be anybody but that person. Because based off of doing IgG, there would be a couple different people that it could potentially be. And so I would just think that the FBI would have done this ahead of time if it's their lead. That's what I was told, is that if it's the FBI shit, the FBI would have went and got his DNA. Like, why wouldn't the FBI have completed the way that they did it? Meaning, once they come up with their lead and their name, Brian Kober, they would complete it by testing that into seeing if it came back. We did it through the lab. Here you go. Why are you passing it off without it being finished? Does that make sense? You would they would never fucking do it like this. The FBI isn't going to say, hey, let's give it to these dipshits. Here you go, Moscow. Here you go, Idaho State Police. Like, they took over that portion of it. So why aren't you finishing it out? So what the chain of custody shows is that they went and collected the trash, and then they turn it over to the Idaho State Police. Why? Why? You took over that portion of the case. Take it through your lab, right? I just think that you would have. That you would have. And it's at that point when you would have done all of those things that you would have then said, hey, our tip to you is that it's Brian Kober, and our tip is that this is how we did it. We used IgG. This is what we did. We had these. It could be potentially these families here, and then we saw and we realized that, holy shit, this one family, they sent a kid off to WSU, and he's a criminology student. Okay, because they would have known all of these things. So that's the other thing, is that when you're doing all your family trees and all this crap, you're researching. It's like you're stalking. Okay, think about this. You call up a friend. Hey, I need to know everything about this guy that I met. Okay, I think he's like, whenever I talk to him about his past or, hey, so what, trying to get to know somebody, it's all really weird. So you and your friend go fucking Facebook stalking and you go Instagram stalking and you go doing however you want to go about, hey, who is this person? I'm not going to date this person. I think, if they're a fucking whack job. So, or you think that your person's cheating on you and then you're starting to look into the people that you think they're cheating on, whatever. At the end of the day, they would have done all these things. You're not just coming up with the name Brian Culver and just and not doing any of that material. Like, you're doing that part of the work. That's how you actually get to the name Brian Culver. And if you're only providing one name, then you did it all to eliminate all these other fucks. And then when you listen to what fucking Othram's saying, is that they were able to trace it back to families in Pennsylvania, Italian families in Pennsylvania. Why won't they ever say? I think they actually have a podcast that they put out about it. I'm looking into that. They didn't. They didn't clear everybody's DNA. Basically, they put all their eggs in a basket. Okay, they put all their eggs in a basket, which was this sheath. Okay, this sheath. Yet, what's really weird about that is it's like, on one hand, they put all their eggs in this basket on the sheath. But what's really weird about that is that they also put their eggs in this basket on this car. In this time frame, right? Well, Jack Showalter eliminate every angle you're looking at. Why are you continuing to follow this? Why are you even continuing to think that this man has something to do with anything? He doesn't drive that type of a vehicle, okay? His DNA is nowhere in that house, not on that sheath, right? Why are you putting... Dude, they took 7 Idaho State police officers, not 1 or 2. They put 7 police officers, Idaho State troopers, following him on December 3rd and 4th. December 3rd and 4th. Literally watching him go all over and meeting up with people. And not just the one day, they did it back to back, December 3rd and December 4th. And they thought that Jack Showalter and Cole could have done this together. That means 2 people. That's like the Delphi case back in the day, when you're going to then go to trial and they lied and said that we never thought it was more than one person. Yeah, y'all did. Just like in this case, they thought it was more than one person. And they thought the person had so much violent rage that they were looking for somebody, because the line of question they're asking people that are like Kaylee's friends, they're asking, who does Kaylee hang out with that has violent tendencies? Not who does Maddie hang out with, not who does Xana, Ethan, and now ding, 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 ready? Bells going off, ready? The cops lied to the guns offices and made it seem like it was about stalking. That's why we're asking. It's because of Kaylee's damages. Okay? Kaylee's damages to her is, but they didn't want to tell the family that. Right? Nobody suffered. It was all in, everybody's sleeping. Why? Because they always knew that this was going to be a plea bargain. Because they could never take this to case. They could never take this case to trial. They knew that. And so they needed to, if they told the families off the rip everything that would have happened, right? There's no family, every family would have been on the same page saying, no, we want a trial. No, we want a trial. The state is the only people that knew that this could never go to trial because this person could potentially walk. So there it is, page, there it is. So it's item 22 and on 11/21, released to submitting agency via agency courier. And that was on 11/21 at 4:36 and 29 seconds. And that is go read Blaker's page 151 out of the 2,356 pages. You see this page, you see that the DNA extracts, portion of the DNA extracted from item 1.1, it was moved. A courier came and picked it up, and it was moved. Okay? You give this to Ann Taylor or any lawyer like you should have when you had it. Okay? Ann Taylor, who's ever repping a defendant, they would have known, like they were hiding all of this. And think about it. You were hiding it as long as you could because I don't care what anybody says. That means that Bill Thompson thought that this was going to end in a plea deal. That Brian Kober is pleading, but that Brian Kober was going to be asking for a plea early on, and he wasn't, and he didn't. And then I don't know if Brian Kober if all these cards just went the right way to think that Ann Taylor was like, well, I'm just going to milk this case and make close $1 million and work this case in all these hours, and I'm going to get paid close to $1 million. If this case is over and a plea deal happens, month 1, 2, 3, 4, no, who's not getting paid? It's pretty crazy when you think about it. Ann Taylor should have been calling for sanctions and being way more aggressive in saying that none of this, all this material, like, Your Honor, we don't even have chain of custody forms. Your Honor, these are things that you would expect to see, X, Y, and Z, right? Well, here's the item, this big old sheath here. We got nothing on it. Nothing. How do you have a preliminary hearing and not give this over? That's why Ann Taylor made a huge mistake when she didn't have a preliminary hearing within 14 days. What did she really think was going to happen when you're dealing with scumbags that are cheating, okay, and have to cover for themselves? You really think that you're going to have a preliminary hearing in June? Just like I'm telling you right now, Tyler Robinson, he ain't getting no preliminary hearing. I'm fucking be seriously shocked. Like, I'll be in a frozen state, okay, if Tyler Robinson gets a fucking preliminary hearing. There's litigators and then there's non-litigators. There's trial attorneys and then there's plea dealers. Okay. This is wild though. But it's right here. 11/21. That's your sheath, your extraction being moved right there. I just would love to know the date when she received these papers. Let's see what's next. After the chain of custody forms, okay, then you get into Oh wait, you know what's a good you guys will like? Um, I think it's like 260. Let me back it up. Okay, let's go over one more time. This is report 4. Date evidence accepted 11/16 and 11/18. Again, the swab of front strap, swab of edges, swab of edges, swab of stains on back. DNA extracts from the items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. Reference the blood cards from Ethan, Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee. Those are items 5, 8, 11, and 14. Reference oral swabs from these 3 people. And I'm going to be guessing that it's roommate, and then it's either Jack Decor or it's Jack Showalter. And then the DNA extracts from these items, which again are like the nails and the DNA profile obtained from item 1.1 was determined to be from an unknown male. That's Brian Kober's. Ethan Chapin, and then redacted. See item 1, report 1, issued on 11/20/22, and this person redacted. See item 2 are not the source of DNA on this item. This DNA profile was entered into the combined DNA system CODIS, so that's how you to be routine, and there was nothing that came back. So that's off the 1.1 swab. The DNA profile obtained from item 1.4, the back, where the spots of blood, indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which matches that obtained from the known reference sample of Kaylee. So Kaylee's the major, assuming a 2-person mixture. This is assuming a 2-person mixture. And now the question is could it be more? This DNA profile is at least, and then gives you the whatever the ratio is. Kaylee and an unrelated random selected individual. So it's more like her than 2 randoms. Maddie is a potential contributor to the minor component. Again, assuming a 2-person mixture. This DNA profile is at least 48.6 quintillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Maddie and an unrelated randomly selected individual than if it resulted from 2 unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general population. That's basically saying that you're not going to be taking Maddie and Kaylee out of that mixture. Ethan, Xana, and then they redacted these names. They are excluded as contributors to this DNA mixture. The partial DNA profile, obtained from item 1.2 indicates a mixture of DNA from 3 individuals, at least one of which is a male. So there's your proof that when anybody's going to sit out there and tell you that sheath only has 1 male profile on it, they are lying to you. Lying. Like right here, black and white. Lying. That sheath had 2 So 3 individuals, at least one of which is male. Due to the low level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. And again, now that's off of, hey, like, let's find out why. Like, anyways, the partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.3 indicates a mixture of DNA from at least 2 individuals, at least one of which is male. Due to the low level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. And just the question just asks is, so you're going to ask a DNA person, go out and ask a DNA person, hey, what is this report saying? What is this report really saying? Because this little generic shit, can something be done? Can something be done? Tags. There's no fucking tags. See, this is what you call misinformation. There is no cameras with any license plates. No tags are on any cameras in this case. You might be talking about a different case if you're saying that. So. Items 1.1 and 1.4 were consumed during testing. However, DNA extract remains from these items. Items 1.2 and 1.3 and their DNA extracts were consumed during testing. Item 20 has been returned to the main laboratory evidence vault pending additional DNA analysis. All other items in the empty packaging have been returned. Boom. That's that. There's other stuff here at the end that's pretty decent. Yeah, here. I think that, yeah, this is from outside. Item 103. Bottom center. This is that cooler outside from outside, I believe. What's that? (118) 2023. Let's see what this is. Is this the mattress pad? I think that's actually the mattress pad. He had a seat cover. Bottom seat cushion from Brian Culver's vehicle. Item 4118 seat cover. Compartment A seat cover and cushion seat. 2015 Hyundai Elantra. Pre-logged in part as from suspect vehicle. Suspect pre-logged as Brian Culver. White mattress cover. There you go. Ooh, this is mail E. Okay, let's see what mail E. This is report 17. C1228. So this is from the trash. And this is what it says. Report 17. Cutting from one Band-Aid, so all these things that are listed here. The DNA profile obtained from item 87.1 was determined to be from an unknown male E. Male E is not the source of DNA previously obtained from item 1.1. You see that? That's important. Okay. Based upon evaluation of the DNA profile obtained from item 87.1 male E and that previously obtained from item 1.1 male A, male E cannot be excluded as being the biological father of male A. The single parent or the single percentage of the parentage index for the loci examined is it was like what, 19 million. So 99.9998% of the male population would be expected to be excluded. The DNA profile obtained from item 89.1 was determined to be a mixture of two individuals with a major female profile. So they didn't use that. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 93.1 is consistent with male E. The DNA profile obtained from item 95.9.1 was determined to be a mixture of two individuals with a major male profile. This profile was not used for comparisons. Due to insufficient quantity, or it was degraded, only a partial DNA profile consisting of 3 alleles was obtained from item 96.1. This profile was not used. A low level of male DNA was detected on item 81.1. However, due to a high level of female DNA detected, no further testing was conducted on this item. No male DNA was detected on item blah, 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 blah. No further testing was done on those ones. No DNA was detected on item 81. No further testing. Further interpretation may be performed upon submission of a known reference sample from any relevant individuals. So what they had at that time was male E, and it was they obtained 87.1. So 87.1 is cutting from one Q-tip style swab. And that male E, this unknown male E, is, and this is where, if you're truly doing IgG, this would be like, how did you basically determine that male E is, from what we're looking at here? This report does not tell me how you determined that male E is the biological dad, basically, of 1.1. Like, when was that done? Where was that done in this whole chain of doing things? So what I would expect you to do is, okay, here you went through all these items. You just wrote out like, hey, we have this unknown. Okay. Here, based upon evaluation, what does that mean? Based upon evaluation of the DNA profile obtained from 87.1 and that previously obtained from 1.1. What do you mean based upon evaluation? What type of evaluation? And I think this is what Ann Taylor was getting at, that like basically Idaho State Police, they have standards, protocol, like, however you have to do this, and this wasn't it. Did you just compare it? Were you just looking at it and looking at the, oh wow, these are so similar, you know? I just don't think she did a really good job of, I don't know. So that's my question, is just that, how did you know that? So based upon evaluation, what do you mean based upon evaluation? What type of evaluation? How did you evaluate male E and male A, like the unknown, like unknowns? Did you compare it to the gloves, which was male, I think, D? So who did this report? So this is what would happen. I bet you Ann Taylor has this person on her. Who is it? Yeah, Taylor, come on down. Taylor, it sucks to be you, man, because you would have. Taylor, how did you determine what type of evaluation did you do? You know what I mean? You would have just known that this profile doesn't match that profile. That's what you would have to say. Male E is not the source of DNA previously obtained from item 1.1. See report number 4 issued, which we've already read. So then how do you then say this in your report? Based upon evaluation, like, how does that even make it into your report? I just want to know, is that protocol? And my guess, my hunch is that it's not, because you would say how you evaluated it. So who asked you to evaluate? So you're just running the tests, right? Here you go. Who's asking you to give an evaluate to see if that DNA is the dad of the A? Who told you to do that? How did you evaluate? Wow. I was expecting to see like that. Then we performed this test, which let's see if it's later on here. Right here. Hold on. Okay. She declares under penalty of perjury. And she did this when? So like 12/28. 12/28. When did you get this shit? What's the timestamps on when you got this crap from the FBI? I thought it was like at 12/28. When did the FBI turn this shit over again? All right, we'll come back and do that. Yeah, brother. Start back at the beginning because go and deep dive. This was your deep dive of the day, but it's crazy. It's crazy. I just want to know what they did. How did you document? You know, here's DNA, the quantity. And then I want to know what's the quantity of all the. So yeah, got to go through all of this. This is still stuff I'm going through. Then some stuff's blacked out. Some reports. Okay, when was this done? Code is December 28th. 4:19, 21 seconds. Yeah, I got to go through that. That's an interesting timestamp. See, printed by Taylor. All right, guys. Go study up. We'll be back later. Go, Ohio. Go, Blue Jays. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. Green bananas. Mama J. The whole investigation seems off me. It's horrible. Well, it's because it wasn't an investigation. But I get it though, in terms of like this is a horrible crime, you know, but you're trained a certain way and just do what you're trained and get trained right. And cases like this should be prosecuted, you know. Yeah. All right, guys. See you on the flip side. Bye-bye.